It's time for the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast. Each week, Trading Stocks Made Easy demystifies stock trading and investing so you can profit big. And now, here's the host of Trading Stocks Made Easy, the wealthy investor, Tyrone Jackson.
Thank you. Thank you so much. No, I appreciate it. Simmer down. Hey, it's Tyrone Jackson, the wealthy investor. This is Trading Stocks Made Easy, episode 231. Thank you with all the applause. No, I appreciate it. Appreciate you all. Yes. You know, it's funny because here in Hollywood, we had the Academy Awards not too long ago, and there were plenty of celebrities on stage. Now, if you think about celebrities, why do we have movie and TV stars? Well, sure, you have a crush on some of them, you like them, you think they're great entertainers. Well, the entertainment industry created the movie stars so you would want to see a movie. So if you think about someone like Sidney Poitier, Elizabeth Taylor, Nick Nolte, even Eddie Murphy to some extent, they were Hollywood creations that played their part in movies, and the studios who produced those movies paid publicists to get the public's attention so that you would go, back in those days, to the theaters to buy a ticket. Movie stars were, in fact, the influencers of their day. We wanted to look like them, talk like them, travel like them, and we watched them live a glamorous lifestyle. Why were you watching movie stars live a glamorous lifestyle? So you would go to the movies and watch them play certain characters. That's how the Hollywood machine really works. Well, guess what? In the stock market, there are some CEOs who use Hollywood to beef up their stock price. Let me explain. There was a CEO who lived about 20 years ago, and his software product and hardware wasn't the number one in the marketplace. So one of the things he decided to do was to make himself a rock star. And when his company launched a new product, everybody in the land knew about it. Who was that CEO? Well, Steve Jobs, of course. If you think about it, CEOs don't show up on an annual basis dressed in black with the press there, introducing products with people wildly applauding those products. It was a great public relations strategy, a way to bring Hollywood to Silicon Valley, and Steve Jobs was at the center of it. Now, if you think back when there was fierce competition in the software sector, shortly after Steve Jobs would do his product reveal and upgrades for the year, who followed? Bill Gates, because it was always an intense rivalry between Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. So Steve turned to Hollywood to get the public's attention and sold millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of iPhones. Bill Gates said, "I'm not going to be outdone." So therefore, we started celebrating every Microsoft software release. It seemed to be everywhere. If you remember when Apple was in its heyday, people were sleeping outside of the stores, right? Just to be in line to get those early iPhone release. That was choreographed. We even had celebrities saying, "Oh, I love the new iPhone and its features." They would go on talk shows. Well, if they got paid to endorse the phone, they were in all the major talk shows of the day. That's public relations. So today's episode is all about rock star stocks and companies you know because they put public relations behind promoting new products. And then make sure you listen to the end because my favorite stock in this particular market that puts no publicity out and has gone up 100% in the last 5 years, I think it's going even higher. So I used to call these publicity stocks Kardashian stocks, stocks that were famous for no reason. We just knew the name of the company, not because they spent money on ads, but because we read about them in magazines. When you're reading about a company in a magazine or newspaper, generally someone has paid to be there. And when you're reading a story about a company, that's called public relations. And with the right public relations, you can make more money than just buying ads. Why? Because every story that you read that's crafted about a publicly traded company is paid for, or at least most of the time. So I'm going to go back just a ways to a company called IBM, International Business Machines. They spent in their heyday millions of dollars so that businesses would store their data on IBM machines. So not only did we see commercials, we were reading about them everywhere, and that helped the company make billions of dollars even back then. They had great public relations. You think of public relations as someone who speaks for you when you don't have to, or you can't. So if you start to hear 5 people talking about IBM and how great it is at a barbecue, that's public relations, right? But if IBM is on the front cover of every magazine or newspaper, that's also public relations. That's also publicity. And we're much more open to a product when we feel like we're not being sold. So in its day, IBM was a rock star. Now, its products were pretty good, but at the same time, they had a little glitz, glamour, and they were written about, talked about, and therefore they had great sales. That era seemed to die down until Apple came along, and again, Steve Jobs decided to give a little Hollywood lights, camera, action, and glitter to an iPhone. Now, when you think about it, an iPhone is actually a pretty marvelous device, but in essence, it's still just a phone with all these functions. There are other phones on the market that have multi-functions and come preloaded with apps, but they don't get the kind of publicity that Apple and its products do. That's good public relations. So Steve Jobs decided to make himself famous and his products famous around the world. Why? Because that promotes brand loyalty. If I use your product once and I like it, and it has rock star status, there's a high probability as I get older, I'm going to stick with that brand and all of its innovations in the future. Apple, ticker symbol AAPL, has done extraordinarily well in the stock market, not only from an earnings point of view, but what has helped push the stock price higher? Good PR or public relations. Microsoft, very innovative when it comes to software and gaming, but if you read about Microsoft in a magazine, you are more likely to buy or purchase the product. Again, because the editorial exploration of Microsoft as a company is publicity that was bought and paid for. Now, I know a little something about Hollywood, and I'm probably not supposed to tell you this, but here goes. When you read a story of your favorite celebrity in a magazine and you see them on the cover, many of the most popular magazines out there will sell the cover to the publicist. So when you see a popular music act that's touring around the country and around the world, and that female artist seems to be on every magazine cover all at the same time, that's choreographed. That's public relations. Their management team probably bought at least half of the covers that you see. And publishing has always been for sale. That doesn't mean that there's lack of integrity, but if you could sell a cover to an artist for, let's say, $5 million, what does that do to the tour that the artist is on? It sells it out. So therefore, the $5 million is the investment. The ticket sales are the recouping of that. Okay? It's always worked that way in Hollywood, in public relations, and in media. So a lot of what you hear on radio and TV has been bought and paid for. In fact, in my private circles, I have a saying that says, all fame is bought, right? Even people that you see on The Tonight Show or your popular daytime shows, they pay publicists. And celebrities have always paid publicists to help enhance their name and marquee value. That's just the way that it goes. Well, we see the same thing in the stock market. The only difference is if you and I really understand a rock star stock and we buy it because publicity is everywhere, it pushes the stock price up. Now, why is this important? Because this is one of those strategies that's beyond our control, but it makes shareholders millions. Public relations makes a good company look great. So we've got IBM, Apple, Microsoft. Do you think Disney ever uses public relations to boost their stock price? Probably. Do you think McDonald's has a good publicity department? Probably. This also leads us to another thing that makes the stock price go high, and no one talks about it if you're running a rock star company: product placement. Haven't you noticed that in a lot of these streaming services, everybody seems to be using the same brand? If you go back and you look at Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, there are brands that pay for product placement. The only difference is they're probably paying $20 million to have their favorite car blow up. Now, notice I'm not mentioning a lot of brand names, but you will suddenly recognize there's product placement everywhere. Why? Everybody needs their product in front of a large audience. And if you can get Tom Cruise to drive that car and blow it up, fans remember that. That makes that car more popular, and that helps make the movie more popular. Now, the shift that we've seen is in the streaming business, when you're getting most of your money from the public, right? Some of these movies still cost $30, $40, $50, $70 million. Well, if you get 10 brands at $7 million, you have your $70 million budget to produce the movie. So I love watching these streaming shows, and somebody's eating a certain cereal and there's always a box in the foreground. That's public relations. Someone is paid to put that box there because that movie is going to be watched how many times by how many millions of people over the next 30 years. So product placement, a huge, huge thing. And notice how many publicly traded companies have their products featured in some of your favorite shows. That's good public relations. And I'll say this, one of the reasons that we know Tesla and the Tesla brand is because we not only see it on television, but it's also because of its public relations. So you'll notice this after listening to this episode. In the next 8 weeks or so, when you're going through a magazine and you're reading editorial content, notice how many times they make a reference to a brand. Notice how many stories you read, including Tesla, because that helps sell cars, but it also does what? Push the stock price higher. Rockstar, publicity, and public relations. More on that topic when I come back.
Want to increase your stock market trading profits? Then you need to start your monthly membership to WITradeschool.com right now. Don't understand how to write covered calls for monthly income? No problem. Simply review Tyrone's latest stock trades in our video library as many times as you need. WITradeschool.com is all about helping you get the financial education you need to earn money in the stock market and change your financial life. Tyrone Jackson, the wealthy investor, has helped his students earn thousands of dollars per month trading stocks online from home. These are people just like you. So what are you waiting for? Follow Tyrone Jackson's red-hot stock trades and investment strategies today. Don't wait. Start your monthly membership at WITradeschool.com right now.
Thank you. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate that. Before the show goes further, I want to say that, first of all, I want to thank my mother who believed in me. She never knew I'd be the wealthy investor, and here I am right before you right now. I appreciate that. I want to thank my publicist and my I shouldn't be talking about public relations. I thought it was so funny at this year's Oscars, they asked the actors not to thank their publicist. Why? Because their publicist gets all that free publicity during the show. Anyway, here we are, episode 231. We're talking about what makes stock prices go higher, good public relations, and publicity in general. So this is really interesting if you already have a brokerage account and you're trading. Some companies don't like public relations. They don't pay for it. They'll pay for ads, but not write-ups in magazines and celebrity endorsements. It's just not part of their culture. But the companies that do pay for it, who deliver on top-line revenue, guess what? Their stock prices almost always rise. We enter the age now, and this, again, is the Steve Jobs effect, where we know the names of some very, very popular CEOs. So if those of you who are familiar with a company called Facebook, who's the CEO? Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg. Right. Why do we know Mark Zuckerberg's name? We know Mark Zuckerberg's name because he pays for publicity and public relations. Remember when Facebook first premiered and became a publicly traded company? Mark Zuckerberg used to wear a hoodie. That all changed when his company became very powerful and was called before Congress multiple times. Notice he only wears suits now. Time to grow up, Mark. Had to grow up, because when you're one of the most powerful media people in the world, you can't just wear a hoodie. However, if I asked you, ticker symbol ORCL, who is the CEO of Oracle? You might not know, because that CEO, although he is worth billions, doesn't seek the spotlight. His name, Larry Ellison. Well, this is really interesting because in the month of March 2024, Oracle delivered its Q4 profits and had the most outstanding top-line revenue in the company's history. Oracle was built on something called the Oracle Cloud. They're really a database company. Why don't you know them the same way you know Microsoft or Apple or Facebook or IBM? Because the CEO doesn't necessarily like public relations. So you may read about the company here and there, but you're not going to read about its star CEO. Why? The CEO doesn't want to be a star. Now let's just talk about the star CEOs and the rock star CEOs. The other reason a CEO would seek to make themselves famous is because they become the spokesperson for the company. So just by seeing their face, you tend to think their product instead of having a famous celebrity represent them. So in that sense, it cuts their costs when they're in front of the camera because they don't have to issue $5, $10, $15, $20 million to a celebrity so that when you see that celebrity, you think about the product. The CEO will do. A lot of times they don't like the spotlight, and the people, especially in the technology field, love being behind the camera. But here's what's interesting about Oracle. Every 5 years, the stock has gone up 100%. So if you're an investor in this company, knowing who Larry Ellison is can make you rich. So there are some stocks that have done incredibly well because of good public relations and, of course, earnings. One of them is a company called Chipotle. You ever hear of them? Did you know in the past 5 years, their shares have gone from $695 to where they are now, which is $2,700 a share? You see, their public relations is not at the forefront. They just let their product do the talking. Well, there's one company that I like right now that has no public relations budget, but is supremely important to the stock market. The ticker symbol is AMAT, Applied Materials. Now, there's a lot of talk in the marketplace right now about AI. Who's going to deliver AI, artificial intelligence, and in what forms? Well, the most popular forms are in the form of hardware, chips that go into handheld devices, cars, everything these days. Even air conditioners are going to start having AI chips. Well, who makes the chips and who builds the factory for semiconductor and AI chips? Applied Materials. Now, this is not a recommendation of the stock. I happen to like it because it's performing extremely well without the benefit of public relations. Sometimes your wealth in the stock market is based on what you know, which stock to buy, and how is that company successful. So I have a saying in the Wealthy Investor Program, don't buy the stock if you don't understand the story. In other words, if you don't understand how that company actually generates revenues and then earnings and profits and dividends on the bottom line, then guess what? You are in effect locked out of wealth to one degree or another because you don't know that company exists. Just like most of you listening right now, and there are thousands of you listening to this show, you didn't realize that you could have bought Chipotle stock, ticker symbol CHIP, 5 years ago. Well, there are other stocks that are hidden in the stock market that don't put their money into public relations, and you could be missing them right now. If only you had an education and someone to explain to you where these hidden gems are, because you'll never find them on your own. That's what this episode is all about. So, of course, I got to do some product placement. That really is what this is all about. So if you haven't been over to thewealthyinvestor.net and downloaded my free ebook, you're going to be locked out of the game of wealth because as certain stocks go higher, you just won't know. But if you really want to be in the know, you would start your membership at witradeschool.com. Why? Every week I do analysis of certain stocks, and you can follow my buy signals so you know when to buy and sell the stocks that are on the move for a profit. Rockstar Stocks, episode 231. That's what this episode was all about. Sometimes I feel like a rock star myself, but I really feel great when you listen to this in the very next episode of Trading Stocks Made Easy. I'm Tyrone Jackson. God bless you, good night, and God save America.
You've been listening to the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast. Be sure to rate and review our show on iTunes. While you're on iTunes, be sure to click the subscribe button and you'll automatically receive our next episode.